Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Money and Me podcast, where we empower you in the era of blockchain, Web3, and crypto. Today, I have with me yet another super interesting guest. I have Charu Sethi, who's the president of Unique Network. And without a doubt, Charu's profile in the Web3 space has been rather unique. So we'd love to hear all about your journey in the Web3 space that I like to call a rabbit hole in the tech space. So, Charu, passing on the mic to you, how did you find yourself in this rabbit hole of a space? And you've managed to stick around for quite a bit of time, have had an illustrious career, of course, with Polkadot, Unique Network, a few others that add to your, of course, illustrious career in this space. So if you can talk all about it.
Sure. Thank you, Varuni, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the show. Yes, it's been a while, and I've spent quite a bit of years, few years in this space. Right now, I am within the Polkadot ecosystem, focused on Polkadot, Unique Network, and NFT Mosaic. So all three different kind of approaches and initiatives, all aligned to one ecosystem. But my journey into Web3, I wouldn't call Web3. I started with blockchain and DLT in specific back in IBM in 2015, when I was within the FSS industry vertical for IBM. And at that point, we started to bring some education into client workshops around blockchain. What is blockchain? The characteristics, and it was more from the conversation around the distributed ledger technology and the transparency element of it, the immutability, and the basic core principles of blockchain. And so we started to do that, just an education mission. And then in 2016, I assumed the role for driving marketing for blockchain in Asia Pacific. And that's really when my exposure to blockchain started. It was an amazing time. Explaining to large clients, to banks specifically, what blockchain meant, how they could leverage it. So the focus was mainly on POCs. It was too new a technology. It didn't have a great reputation. Cryptocurrency word was being avoided by the enterprise segment back then. So we did a few POCs, and at that point in time, I did that for about 2 years, then moved on to do something else in IBM. But I realized that DLT was not Web3. Web3 was a whole philosophy and approach, and there were so many layers to it, which I really wanted to learn and understand. So I left IBM at the end of 2020, joined Engine, which was one of the Polkadot projects as well earlier. Did that for a couple of months, small short project, and then this opportunity with Unique Network came through. Unique Network had just won a hackathon, hacking or building NFTs on Polkadot, and the co-founders, the CEO and CTO, they brought me in, and they just raised an initial funding, and then we kind of grew from there. So we started to get involved more and more in Polkadot related efforts. And now, so we have Unique Network has a full tech stack for NFTs, and we are driving various ecosystem wide projects and initiatives for NFTs. I'll pause there.
Wow, lovely. That has been quite a journey, I must say. And you truly saw technology, the centralized form of technology, I'm sure, at IBM. And now you're experiencing and rather building the decentralized technology. If I'm not wrong, Unique Network works or focuses on onboarding Web2 companies and clients into Web3, which of course comes with its own set of challenges. If you can speak a little bit about the kind of challenges that Web2 companies face while transitioning to Web3, what would they be, and how does Unique Network, if at all, addresses those challenges? If you can elaborate also your vision um, alongside the transition of these companies from Web 2 to Web 3. That would be great.
Sure. So the challenges are layered, and they are under different verticals. So first of all is uh, we at Unique Network, have been focused on NFTs and from an infrastructure perspective. We were never focused on the earlier hype around JPEGs and speculative assets. We do have a marketplace to showcase the advanced capabilities, but we were always building for what's next in NFTs. And we knew that while the earlier speculative cases around art, around trading, will build the awareness, which was great because NFTs was one vertical within blockchain that people understood right away. They participated in it right away, and it was easy to understand. So that's something that helped the industry, this kind of vertical, establish itself. But we were building for developers, small businesses, large businesses, the infrastructure to onboard easily. Now, when I say that, it's very, I mean, it's very difficult for Web2 companies to understand the starting point of experimenting something with Web3. They are, first of all, they do not understand in identifying, or they find challenges in identifying the right use case. And the aim is always, okay, let's test something, which is great, but when they think about what shall we do that can address an existing problem in the business, that is a challenge that most Web2 companies will face if they start to identify use cases based on that. And then the second challenge is that they often do not have tech teams who understand, well, in the broader ecosystem perspective, the solidity contracts, or the solidity or smart contracts, or so those kind of developers do not exist in the enterprise world. They may be a few, but they don't have teams dedicated to Web3. So that's another challenge. And then even if they hire a few developers, they will not know what use case to explore. So from that, coming from that perspective, we wanted to, like 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago, we released a video on how Web2 developers can use our tech stack. That was the very important for us, that this tech stack, the SDKs that we've built, should be usable by any Web2 developer. They don't need to know blockchain. So that's one problem that we've been trying to address. And as an example, Tap Nations, which is a Web2 company, they are a big global company and have many um, mobile tab-based games, right? The kind of Candy Crush kind of games that we play. Not Candy Crush, but similar. I mean, there's so many of those games out there. And they have millions of users. So they were looking to integrate blockchain. And they always, I mean, they've experimented with various blockchains, but when they integrated with Unique Network for the Polkadot ecosystem, they were pleasantly surprised. We were pleasantly surprised because their team did not come back to us with too many questions. We give them our SDKs and docs, and then they just integrated, and within a matter of few weeks. So they didn't come back to us asking basic questions or too many questions. So that was a huge kind of validation of the fact that what we built is for the right audience. I mean, it works, right? So I think that's the address that the challenge that we have been trying to address at Unique Network, and we do have proof points in terms of bringing Web2 to Web3, and we plan to scale that approach. Having said that, in a very recent interview, one of the initiatives in the ecosystem, Block Deep Labs, they highlighted a new message, which was interesting. They said we should take Web3 to Web2 and kind of embed that technology in their existing systems. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And what Unique Network has, those tools have the capability to hide behind their tech stack. And essentially, what we are seeing now is NFTs and the Web3 tech stack is somewhere under the hood. And that's what we've always wanted to achieve.
You rightly mentioned that NFTs still definitely are under the hood, even though I suppose back in 2019, 2020, NFTs were like the talk of the town, and yet after I feel almost 5 years, we're not sure where NFTs or the NFT space is headed. In fact, there are a lot of speculations around true use cases of NFTs, which quite a few people in the market say that are yet to be seen. If you can talk about the growth of the NFT space at large, and we know if we talk numbers, then NFT trading volumes or sheer number of NFT artists have reduced. I'm not sure about the artist part, but I definitely know that trading volumes have dropped down, which definitely signals a drop in the retail side, but has nothing to do really with the technology, the tech growth, or um, the number of people creating NFTs or even the use cases. So, if you can talk about the sector at large, what is the future for NFTs? Are they going to be this gimmicky thing that stays in the past, or do they have a true future with the kind of use cases that we talk about, the textual use cases that have been spoken about? If you can address that, please.
Yeah, I think very good question, and I think about it all the time. So yes, the NFTs, this kind of name, is it's sort of so hard coded to the idea of trading and making money and meme coins and images and those kind of assets that you have fun with. So it's related to that assets, but I think we have not really talked a lot about the technology and what it enables, right? If you have something to asset to verify the ownership of, that's what an NFT can do. And when you start looking at it from that lens or that perspective, then the trading or the speculative use cases don't necessarily come top of your mind. If I don't use the word NFT, I use the word thing or object or block or byte or bit or something that is not NFT, that word, it will have a very different connotation, right? So I think I'm almost tempted to now start thinking that, okay, maybe this needs another brand name. And so, but what we are seeing now, and it's actually now in the last 6 months, we've started to see a lot of startups, developers reach out to us on projects that they are building. And in in these new projects, it's kind of more about utility or what they want to deliver, which is enabled by NFTs. They're not delivering NFTs, they're delivering things that are enabled by NFTs. And I can give you some examples. Like, there is a game that's delivering an experience of um, claiming objects, uh, claiming going fishing, right? Bringing fish back, trading it in the marketplace, or going into a town for a walk, buying things. So kind of a virtual environment where there's no mention of NFTs, there's no kind of trading of NFTs, but there are these things, that assets in the ecosystem, right? So it's kind of a bit more obvious use case. Then the use cases around engagement and loyalty, that are little apps that are being developed in our ecosystem where there's no mention of NFTs again. We did a POC for Connor Daly, who's a race driver, for his race weekend. And it was called an Insider Pass. It was a small fan club that we kind of tried to create for him. And that was mainly for people on the track. And NASCAR race fans are not. I mean, it's one of the biggest sporting event. Like 350,000 people show up for the race, and so they're not a digital first crowd. So they claimed, some of those claimed fans claimed the NFTs, and they had no idea it was NFT or there was anything blockchain at the back end. Then the other recent use case is that we are seeing is related to AI, where NFTs are somewhere embedded in governance models, audit tracking, and things like that. And there's no mention of the word NFT. These are just things that enable these governance models, right? So we are seeing that sink into the background, and that's where I think some of the most interesting applications will come up, and it'll help us stop worrying about the word NFT.
That does make a lot of sense, and you spoke like a true marketer about the the use case rather than the branding itself. And interestingly, you mentioned that we should be rebranding NFTs, which sounds when you mentioned when you mentioned it, it did sound quite bang on because we've seen rebranding as the strategy, the go-to strategy for so many companies of late, in not just in the Web3 space but generally. So quite a bang on answer, I must say. Um, Getting back to your role as a marketer. I think currently marketers are in big demand, and it's often said that bear markets are the time to build, and bull markets are when the marketing, the branding, and all of that comes in. So, as a marketer, if you have to speak about a few differences between marketing for Web 2 and Web 3, is there any difference? What difference is it? And if there were any key pieces of advices that you had to give to founders, entrepreneurs, or marketers in this space from your uh, like your 2 cents on marketing in Web3, what would they be?
Sure. Yes, it's very different. And I worked in Web2 marketing for many years in IBM as well, and which is again B2B. And here in Web3, while we like our infrastructure is more kind of B2B. It's meant for developers and companies, small, big, startup founders, whatever, but it's kind of infrastructure for them to build on. So even kind of B2B is very different. So in the end, there is always a community, and there is always the power of that narrative. The other I mean, the power of narrative exists both ways, but the big difference is that the in a web 2 marketing setup, the the edge, um, which is like your end users, not end users, but your kind of field marketers or your digital marketers, your executing marketing team is kind of accountable to the core, to say the head of marketing, or to internal business leaders, or to internal stakeholders. So in a way, the edge is accountable to the core. In web3, it just flips. The core people who are working on the projects, they are accountable to the edge, our community members, the team members, the people who are our stakeholders, who are kind of buying the token or are participating in the dapps. So I'm accountable to them, and every member in my team is the core is accountable to the edge. So I think that just changes the whole positioning and the way we work. And of course, the whole transparency angle also adds a lot of different um, things that you want to focus on. So that is a core like fundamental difference in terms of marketing. And I would just say that I don't know if um, you know, there is one thing that works for all. It's just like, because again, and this kind of edge is influenced not just by what you do, it's influenced by things that are totally out of your control: the market cycles, the sentiment, other projects, hacks, things that are totally out of your control. So I think there can't be one advice that'll work for all, or one or two things. But I think just kind of staying transparent and being close to the community is one thing that is not easy to do, but is important in this space.
Absolutely, very well said. Transparency is one thing that we aim for, being in a decentralized space, and yet lacks so much, especially B2C, which marketers definitely need to focus on. And of course, building communities has been the core value, I should say, of the Web3 spaces, where communities feel so tightly knit with. Like you mentioned, the core, the people who are actually building the project. So that's definitely great. We've already seen quite a bit of progression if we talk about regulations, how world regulations have shaped around blockchain, around DLT, even cryptocurrencies. Um, have you ever faced any problems with regulations? And if you have to speak about global regulations and how they have progressed, and what your expectations from regulators would be. Would it come with a lot of ease for entrepreneurs, or do you think that the kind of stringent regulation, or more on the stringent side, that we have today in most of the nations, is it going to continue, or is it going to be easing? So maybe your view or your overview of the regulatory landscape.
Yep. So I think obviously with all the recent news coming from the US and Trump making moves to define a regulation and recognize that in this industry it needs a clear regulation is important, is a step in the right direction. I do not know, or maybe I do not fully agree with announcing a crypto reserve with multiple tokens in it is the best move for the industry both ways. But I'll put that to a side. But definitely from a regulatory perspective, it is what's happening in the US is sending positive signals to the rest of the world. It is important. When I was in Hong Kong, there was openness. There was so much conversation around the fact that we want to become the crypto hub of Asia. And um, in that tone, they want to really open up and invite institutional companies and to invest, to participate in the growth, and are opening up to more clarity in the regulations. So what's happening in the US is kind of triggering a regulatory competitive environment. And I'm also seeing countries like Malaysia, which have been in general closed. It's not to crypto. Even their banking sector is not that open. So even they are establishing some sort of sandboxes on the side to understand the regulations. Thailand is doing that. So I guess there is definitely a shift. There is definitely, and the shift is positive. Singapore has been way ahead in terms of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is a central bank, jumping into bigger projects and defining the rules and regulations in limited scope. So, in short, regulation is needed. What's happening is positive, and I think the intention behind protecting consumer interest is something that I'm fully aligned with. We just need to know better and faster for this industry to survive. I think that's where and grow to support the innovation. So that's what I would say. It's a huge topic, lots to dive into, but I'll pause there.
No, that was short and sweet, and did sum up what the regulators feel as well as what the entrepreneurs feel. And I think an ideal question to end the rather insightful interview would be: what are your expectations or predictions from the space at large in the next 5 years? Anything that you feel would be a game changer for this space? Of course, AI has been one rather talked about tech, and its combination with blockchain has been called by a lot of entrepreneurs deadly. So if you can talk about what your expectations from the space in the next 5 years would be, and how does unique network sort of align with whatever expectations from the future from the tech are. So if you can
Yeah.
obviously talk about the progression of the space and unique networks role in that.
Yes. So I think I'm not sure what to predict because this industry has multiple pillars and which are driving change in different industries. So, but I would say that the regulatory clarity will support a lot of enterprise adoption of Web3, which they were resistant to earlier. And I think that's something that I'm seeing change within the Polkadot ecosystem. There are bigger companies, organizations, governments that are initiating these conversations. And VBrick is one of the more interesting, from my perspective, very interesting. Large organization that's trying to use Web3 to build solutions that solve real business problems. And I guess so I'm seeing more of that. And I in about 5 years, think it is companies like Unique Network is a drop in the ocean. I mean, there's just so much innovation in the space, but w- the I think the bigger priority will be when enterprise sector is ready. Do we have the right tech to support them? Do we have ways for them to integrate in a more efficient, cost efficient, and a productive manner that they can actually focus on solving real business problems than trying to something trying to do something that's new and cool and get a press release out, right? So I think that conversation is shifting. So that's what I'm most excited about, the openness of the enterprise segment, and large existing companies to really understand and use these technologies to their advantage.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and it does make a lot of sense. Any concluding remarks that you might have for our viewers, or anything that you want to say? Maybe a roadmap for Unique Network throughout this year.
Yeah, sure. So, from a unique network perspective, we are fully driving the NFT Mosaic initiative for the Polkadot ecosystem. We will be making announcements around a few clients we are onboarding, and from a Polkadot ecosystem perspective, I think this is a great year. And as I said, I'm super excited to see what else will come out from larger companies using Polkadot, and when their end users have no idea that it's all on blockchain or on Polkadot. So that's something, let's watch out for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aru. And I think you kept it quite concise and were able to sum it up pretty well. And those were some amazing and insightful points that you made out there. So thank you so much for joining us and enlightening our audiences about all the amazing things happening, not just in the Polkadot ecosystem, but across Web3. And I must say that your journey from IBM to Web3 has been pretty amazing, and I hope that you're able to help all the other Web2 firms transition into Web3 as smoothly as you did. So, once again, thanks a lot for all of that.
Thank you, Bernie. Great chat. Thanks for having me.